All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. We've just returned from quite a little break, for the holidays and the beginning of the new year. And so I think we're pretty settled. There's a lot of hustle and bustle in the beginning of the year. So I am super excited to be back. For our new season of Talks with V, and it's Transforming with V. And towards the end of the year and into the beginning of the year, a lot of the focus is on changes that we want to make and New Year's resolutions and vision boards, all of that good stuff. And for me, there's a few changes that I've been working on. And it's just gotten to that time to say, like, let's make a permanent change. And instead of these temporary changes, because as we all know, when we're talking about these New Year's resolutions, we are all pumped about it. And then, we're like, yeah, I'm going to do this. January 1st comes, you're still pumped. One weekend, you're still pumped. Mid-January, towards the end of January, you've already backslid or went back into old habits. And so I want to talk about transformations and all the different changes that maybe you're trying to make, I'm trying to make, that you want it to be a permanent shift. And so that's what we're talking about this season. And before we get into it, if you haven't already done so, make sure to subscribe to my channel at V Bailey Network. We made some updates, and the HBCU Lounge Network, if you haven't already subscribed to that one. That's our we've been partnering for some time, and we have been live streaming on the HBCU Lounge Network. And so a lot of you already are subscribed there, but if you haven't, make sure you subscribe. There's so much great content on that channel as well. But without further ado, I want to introduce one of my close friends. I'm super excited to introduce you and just talk about what it is that you are doing. And you've recently been able to add author to your list of accomplishments. And you're a fair recovery coach and a Tedx speaker. So, and I'm sure so much more. And so without further ado, welcome, Miss Briaina Latrice. Briaina Latrice, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hey girl, how are you doing?
I am good, girl. Just coming off this
Good.
break, super excited to be back and just truly excited about this season. Um,
Yeah.
so how have you been?
Transformation, like that's a great way to come back into a season for sure.
Oh, yes. And honestly, going into this year, I mean, it was on my mind last year, but going into this year, it's just been really like, how you can just kind of feel something like this push that's just like change needs to happen and it
Yeah.
needs to happen now. And honestly, I could just feel it in the atmosphere with other people around me and just, groups that I'm connected with. I can just feel that there's a shift happening, and I'm excited about that because I feel like the last few years we have been going through a crazy time,
Mhm.
and just this space of just not knowing what to do next. And then a lot of amazing businesses have been birthed, and but I just think that sureness is important in when you're making a change so that you can be very intentional about it. And I think that intentionality is what makes it last and makes it different from just changing temporarily and making a full-on transformation.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's me working on my strengthening my relationship with God and working on that spirituality, that spiritual growth, and health. I'm doing the fitness weight loss thing, but it's really about the health and just feeling good, feeling energized. I have a big bubbly personality, and I'm just like, I just need the energy to match that. And I'm getting older, so that all plays a factor in like how we feel. And
Yeah.
so it's never too late, but the later that you wait, the harder it is. And so we're making that shift. And so, but I definitely wanted to have you on because speaking of change and transformation,
Mhm.
I think we look at transformation in a very narrow way, but transformation happens in so many different areas of our life. And so first I want you to give you a chance just to introduce, what it is that you do, what got you into this work, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks again for having me on the show. Super excited to be here. My name is Briaina Latrice. I am an affair recovery coach. And like V said, I now get to add author to that. And that is so exciting. Yes, I'm so excited. I'm an
That's
author. Just completed my first book. It's actually a devotional. It's a 49-day devotional, and it's called Healing the Heart from Infidelity. So
good.
I'm super excited about that. And um, I am a speaker. So, I also speak as well. And, how I got into this work is, it's my personal experience.
Mhm.
Went through infidelity in my marriage, tried to make it work, was unsuccessful in making it work. So then I made the decision to step away from that marriage and leave that marriage. And so, one of the things that I learned when I was going back and forth between trying to make it work or not trying to make it work, what I've learned is that every decision is hard. And that's
Mhm.
what I tell my women now. Whether you choose to leave or stay, both decisions are hard. And I am here to help you navigate that hard. So, one isn't, a better decision than the other. It's just what's best for you. And
Mhm.
so I always tell my women, if you decide to stay, what I do is I help them to understand the components of trust and if their partner is a good person to rebuild trust with, or
Mm.
if not, then how to move forward and be happy within yourself. So, yeah, that's kind of my story in a nutshell. It was my personal experience.
Yeah.
And like the very first time I shared my story, V, on social media, it's
Yeah.
kind of crazy. Like, I only had 79 friends on Instagram the very first time I shared my story. And I
Yeah.
didn't even know what I was doing,
Oh,
but
wow.
it was like
Led there.
probably
Led to do
30
that.
minutes or an hour after I shared my story, it had already hit 5K views.
Wow.
And yeah, and, that said something to me. Like, there
Absolutely.
were so many
Absolutely.
people, in my DMs that were saying, "Hey, this is my experience." And some people where if you get on their pages, it looks like they're in a successful marriage, but they're
Mm.
not. And so that's
Right.
kind of how life after infidelity transformed. It was like, "Wow, this is powerful, and I need to do something with this because I am one of the few who have the courage to share my story."
Oh, wow. No, that
Mhm.
is really amazing. Um, I I know when you first shared it with me, and I mean shared your page and what it is that you do, because we met at a networking, well,
Yeah.
kind of like it was like a recording for a podcast.
Uh-huh.
I was like, oh my God, I need to be in these kind of settings all the time because I just felt so at home and just talking to other amazing, like, content creators. And then some people were just there supporting
Yeah.
Javon.
Yeah.
and, um, and it was just a good time. But I know that when I had seen your, page, and I was just like, wait, what?
Uh-huh.
And then you shared it with me. I was like, wow, that's so amazing. And just the fact that you took your pain and turned it into purpose. And you hear that a lot. And I think that people don't quite understand that. Yes, sometimes, well, a lot of times they may go through things that are painful, but there's a reason. It
Mhm.
doesn't feel, I'm sure in the moment it's not feeling like, oh, okay, well, I know there's a reason. i'm
Yeah.
i'm all right.
Yeah.
No, it's terrible. And but that pain, is something that you're able to use and transform it into something so powerful and help individuals be able to heal.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm sure, you are going to save a lot of lives just through the work that you are doing. And I know that's like, whoo, that's kind of heavy, but you're called to do it. And
Yeah.
I believe that God fully equipped you to do so. And so I'm just super excited,
Thank you.
just to know that you're doing that, and to know you, and to know what kind of person you are. I really believe in this work that you're doing. So
Yes. Thank
really
you for that.
amazing. Yeah, yeah. I plan on getting the book. I'm gonna get it when I see you. And even though I haven't gone through that, I feel like, it's still something to, learn, and then,
Yeah.
have it on deck so I can share. I have a friend actually in mind that I would like to share, gift her, the book. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna, support you and her at the same time.
I love it. And that's something that I say too about the book
Yeah.
is that first of all, the book is gender neutral because
Mhm.
hurt is hurt. So it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, you can
Yeah,
benefit from this book because broken hearts, like it doesn't matter, right?
it's
But
the
then the
same.
other part to this, why this book is so important is that even if you haven't been through infidelity, it
Mhm.
still gives you an understanding of what a loved one that you know of is going through and how
Yeah.
you can
Oh,
be there
yeah.
to support them.
Yeah.
One of the things, and I hope this isn't going off topic too much, but
Mhm.
one of the things that I experienced and that a lot of women that I've worked with have experienced is uh, church, right? And
Mhm.
so a lot of the times when you're going through particular situations in marriage, everyone in the church, not everyone, but sometimes you'll have people in the church that'll say, whatever you do, stay married, stay,
Right.
but
Yep.
God don't like divorce. God don't like divorce. But you're not actually taking the time to listen to what this person is experiencing. And
Yep.
so we have to learn, especially, people that have been blessed by God to be like these advisors and these counselors,
Mhm.
we
Mhm.
have to learn how to actually listen and from a place of understanding. And we
Mhm.
cannot give advice based on our personal um,
Beliefs.
beliefs.
Yeah.
I was trying to be but
Yeah.
our personal beliefs, but we have to be factual in the information that they have given us. And too
Right.
many times, women have been pressured to stay in toxic marriages,
Yeah.
right? All
That's really
because
true.
people say, hey, whatever you do, stay married. And one of the things that
Mhm.
I actually had a guy on my podcast episode, and we were talking about, well, I won't say that, but I had a guy on my podcast episode and he was just like, well, I believe in marriage. I believe in marriage. And I think that he knew afterwards, like, hey, so after it, like the next day, he reached out and he was like, I'm so sorry. If we need to re-record anything, let me know. Because I just realized this wasn't my platform and I brought my
Mhm.
views on there. And I said,
Yeah.
the worst thing you can do when a person is coming to you from a place of hurt, in a place
Mm.
of saying, hey, I think I'm about to end my marriage, the worst thing you can do is come from a space of selfishness and say, well, I don't believe in divorce, because you have
Right.
no idea what that person has already went through
Right.
internally to
Right.
even get the courage to
Right.
come to
To
you,
open up
to open
and
up to
to
say,
yeah,
"Hey, I'm
articulate
dealing
that.
with
Yeah.
this particular situation that is hard." And
Yeah.
that was one of my experiences before I got my divorce. I remember meeting with two friends separately, and I was telling both of them, I feel so guilty that when I go to pray, I can't even open my mouth because I really want to get a divorce, but I
Mhm.
didn't know how to find those words in prayer to say, God, help me get a divorce, because God,
Yeah.
and one of my friends was
Yeah.
like, Bree, God already knows your heart. So when you go to pray, just say, God, show me the way, or my heart, and guide my heart. And
Right.
so I just say that, like, I'm grateful that I was eventually able to get wise counsel from people, but we have to be very careful when people are coming to us in a vulnerable state, how we
Right.
give advice.
No, absolutely. You have to be responsible with your platform. And even sometimes with my platform, I get a little nervous, about things because, I definitely have the heart for people. But just trying to make sure that I don't overstep, with the
Yeah.
platform, because I'm sure in my real life I overstep all the time. But with the platform, I want to be responsible with it, for
Yeah.
sure. And then, because it's tough for people to open up, and
Mhm.
that's just across the board. And when they go through something so traumatic, it makes it even harder, because there's a lot of things that come with that.
Yeah.
There's fear, there's shame,
Mhm.
um, and there's that, that fear of the rejection if someone doesn't like what it is that is going on, and what you want to do about it. Then you're kind of like, oh, should I say anything? I
Right.
don't know, because once I share, what are
Mhm.
they going to think about me? Are they going to think it's my fault? Are they going to maybe not think it's my fault? Are they going to pity me, but then look at me differently? Because just like you said, I think too, in the church setting, as well as your personal setting, a lot of people are married, and when divorce comes up, even if it's attached to cheating or not attached to cheating, or infidelity, um, if you go through with it, people are looking at you like, oh, they don't want to hang out with you anymore. Or I know some women who shared that it was like they had this mark on them, and it was just like, oh no, like it was contagious. Like, oh
Mhm.
no, we can't hang out anymore. We don't want to get a divorce. It's just like,
Mhm.
it's not quite how it works.
Right.
And if you're that fragile, about it, then maybe there is some things that are going on, in your marriage that you may need to look at, right?
Yeah.
And be proactive, because you shouldn't be, that fragile about it, that you are rejecting or neglecting,
Mhm.
people who you have relationships with, because
Yeah.
they're going through something you don't want to go through. You know
Mhm.
what I mean?
Mhm.
They're your friend or your family or your church family, and they need your support, even if you don't
Yeah.
understand exactly, how they got there or what they're going through. Being a
Mhm.
friend means, listening and being there, so that they can share whatever it is that they're comfortable with sharing. And like you said, earlier when we are talking about the book, is that um, you can learn how to support a person going through
Yeah.
something like that. And
Mhm.
then next time, something like this happens again to another friend or someone
Yep.
that you can better be, better support, better
Mhm.
neighbor, better person, as
Yeah.
a whole, in that situation. So yeah,
Yeah.
I
'Cause
think.
on a personal level,
Mhm,
I always think that people should be cautious of how they treat people in
mhm,
particular situations,
mhm,
because at any moment, that could be your story. And so
mhm,
for
mhm,
you to pass judgment to say, "Hey, I'm not gonna hang out with you because you're
mhm.
divorced,"
Yeah,
th God forbid, like, I don't hope that that happens to anyone, but here's the thing, do you actually think that anybody that got married had the
right.
dream that ended in a
Right.
divorce?
They're like, I
So it's
plan on
like
getting divorced in
exactly.
about a
So
few
it's like,
months,
make
couple years
make
in.
sense. And so, and that is why I created this space of helping women make the decision that they want to make, that is best
Right.
for them. Because so many times women will hear, "Girl, you better than me. If it were me, I'd be gone." But how do you
Mhm.
you don't
They don't
understand
know
that
until they're
they're
in that position.
already going through and
Yeah.
dealing with. And then
Yeah.
the funny thing is 9 times out of 10, that same person who told you that, when they get into a relationship and they partner do the same thing, what do? Stay.
Stay.
So
Yeah.
it's like
Exactly.
we have to stop making it seem like
Yeah.
we're exempt from
Yeah.
experiences that other people are dealing with.
Right.
So that is so important, why we must be able to
Yeah.
to approach people from a space of compassion and empathy.
Yeah, I was just thinking empathy, just, having that, for others, because you may not understand, you may not have been in their shoes, but,
Mhm.
trying to, to empathize with them, like just imagining like what that could possibly be like. And I,
Yeah.
you know, couldn't, I mean, what I can imagine is that if I went through anything like that, um, it would be a lot, just
Mm-hmm.
which I was kind of go into, with that, what would you say, with your business, how have you been able to help individuals in a powerful way? I'm sure that you've been able to do that in a powerful way, so far. But what would you say, is the starting point, to for that recovery to kind of transform? Because once you've had this life that you thought, okay, I've got this good husband, and
Mm-hmm.
we've got the house, we're doing all right financially, we have the kids, or we don't have kids, but we're living the dream,
Yeah.
somewhat, our version of the dream. And
Yep.
then something like this happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just turns your world upside down.
Yep.
Um, and now you're faced with this decision of, what do I do? So
Mm-hmm.
how is it that you help people like shift their mindset in that paradigm to transform this situation that you maybe never imagined was going to happen to you,
Yep.
to, okay, what is this new normal going to look like? Because obviously
Mm-hmm.
it's not the same, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I think let me start off with a story. Like I love telling good stories.
I
But
love listening
so
to the story.
that is just the speaker in me. It's like, okay, it's tell the story and then, land the
No,
plane. Like that's what you gotta do.
yes.
So when I first started my healing journey, I actually got connected with a coach. So I was going through therapy and stuff, but this was before the push for like black therapists. So it was very hard to find somebody that I could connect
Look like
with. So I
them.
went
Yeah.
to therapy,. But these people just weren't connecting with me.
Oh,
So I was able to find a life coach who's a black woman, understood my experience. And
yeah.
so the very first session that we did together, her first question right out the bat was, when you look in the mirror, what is it that you say to yourself?
Mm,
And, I answered it. I was like, well, people say I'm successful, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, no, when you
mm.
look in the mirror, what is it that you say to yourself? And so I kind of like rephrased it and I was like, well, some people are like, and she was like, Brianna, and
Yeah.
you know how sister girls get, like,
Yeah.
she wasn't playing. She's like, Brianna, when you
I'm gonna
know,
ask you one more time.
and so, like, and I'm 31 at this point,
Yeah.
and I have mastered the art of deflection.
Oh,
Like, I can
God.
deflect like nobody's business, but with this heifer, I could not deflect, and it was pissing me off. And so
She's like, I'm actually gonna help you today.
exactly, exactly. And so, I paused, and it was so funny because she and I laugh about this now, but I was like, that long pause was me contemplating, am I going to do this or am
Mm,
I going to get up and walk out? Because a part of me was like,
mm.
nah, forget this. I'm done.
Yeah, I don't want to
And
sit
so,
with this
yeah, I don't
real.
want to sit with
Yeah.
this. And so,
Mm,
girl, when I said the truth was that I hate myself. And
mm,
now, talking about the art of deflection, right?
mm,
The poor, like the textbook child. I'm the only child.
mm,
Went to college, graduated college. When I got with my ex-husband, I
mm,
had saved myself for him, so I was a virgin. I've
mm.
done all of these things. I've had all of these
Did it
accolades,
right,
graduated.
as they say.
You know, yeah, like I. So when you look at my life, you would think, oh,
Mhm,
okay, Bree doesn't have any, stressors. It had a
mhm.
TEDx talk. I'm speaking, public
Yeah,
speaker. So it's like,
yeah.
why would you hate yourself, right? And
Mm,
so once I got down to it, I realized, man, the rejection from my husband, but then also realizing that rejection from my father, because I
mhm.
hadn't met my father. And mind
Oh,
you, a little bit of my story is that my husband didn't just cheat once. Like the very first time that I found out that he cheated, the very first time I made myself stop after woman 6. And so that was
Mm.
the very first time. And then for the next 5 years, every 6 months, I would find out about another woman. So now I have insecurities, right? Now I
Right,
have shame. Now I
right.
have fear. Who will want me? I'm in my 30s. I've been out of the dating game since I was 19 because I got with him when I was 19. Like,
Mm,
I'm hearing these stories about how hard it is to be in the dating field, you know? And then also, if you have a very manipulative partner that tells you things like, no other man is going to want you, I've made
mm,
you, you're the person that I am, you know, you're the
mm,
person that you are because of me. So now
mm,
I have this belief that, man, I'm nothing attached to this man. So there's
mm.
all of these beliefs, right, that
Yeah.
I am dealing with, that I am struggling with, that I can't actually move forward. And now I'm ashamed
Right.
because I've had people tell me, you're not the same woman that you used to be. You're not this confident, joyous, buoyant, right,
Mm,
woman that I knew prior to you getting married. And so
mm,
I'm embarrassed. Like, what about, how did I let myself get here? And so
mm.
when we talk about those
Yeah, each year it's probably gets harder and harder.
it
And then
does.
hearing that people reaffirming those
Mhm.
things, it's just like, well, maybe it's too late. Because like
Maybe
I
it's
can
too
only
late.
imagine what that voice, that has been that inner voice that is being damaged, and
Mhm.
verbally, emotionally abused
Mhm.
is taking on year after year after year.
Yeah.
So hearing it verbally and feeling that, internally, and then having this partner that is breaking, this vow that
Yeah.
they made, to you, and you don't even feel safe in your own relationship. Yeah, I could see where it's just like, okay, well, I really don't even know where to start. Maybe,
Yep.
you're thinking like, okay, maybe it can get better, but to outright leave or do anything about it, what will that say, about me, and who can I turn to, in this moment? So then you just stay. Like, yeah, I wouldn't know really either. I think it would just have to be a moment that's just like, ah.
Yeah, and you know, that's the thing. Women are just trying to figure it out. So a
Yeah.
lot of the times, you know, you see a woman who leaves and then
Mhm.
she's back with them. And then she
Mhm.
leaves again and then she's back with them. But that's the thing. She's just trying to figure it out. And that's
Yeah.
one of the first things that I tell women. They're like, what's the first step that I should do? Don't make a decision.
Uh,
Because like you said, you're confused, you're broken, you're
yeah.
vulnerable, and you don't know. And
Yeah.
so until you actually have clarity on what it is that you want to do, leave or stay, don't feel pressured to make a decision because you don't know. And that's why women are also embarrassed, is because they run off and they tell people, and their support system is like, girl, you need to leave. And they like, girl, yeah, I'm leaving him. I'm done. I'm done. It's the worst thing you can do because you don't
Right.
know. Right now, you're running off of anger and hurt,
Mhm.
you know, and
Yeah.
all of these emotions. But you really just need to stay. I call it a processing season. It is totally okay to be
Mhm.
in a processing season at the very beginning. But to answer your question, the first stage to that is like after the pity party, because a lot of times women will like hold on to their hurt and not really express how hurt they are. So I tell them
Mhm.
to have a pity party, like as long as you want it. It can be 3 hours, 3 days, 3 weeks, but allowing yourself to acknowledge those emotions. The
Yeah,
strongest,
absolutely.
yeah, because the
That's the only
strongest,
way you can heal
it's
from
the
it.
only way you can heal and, like, move through it.
Yeah.
Because saying stuff like, "Oh, you know, I'm a G," that's weakness. That's a form of
Right.
weakness. The
Right.
strongest thing you can do is cry because it's
Mhm.
acknowledging how
Mhm.
you are feeling and
Right.
allowing yourself to express it outwardly. But
Exactly.
the most important steps to that is, I always tell my clients, we allow people to treat us one step lower than we treat ourselves. So
Oh, yeah.
case in point,
Yeah.
how I saw myself, the reality is that I hated myself. So
Mhm.
that is why I allowed this mistreatment from my ex-husband.
Mhm.
So much so that when I asked him, "Why can't you stop?" He said, "I can't stop cold turkey." But because I didn't truly love
Uh,
myself, I
yeah.
allowed that
You allowed it.
answer and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
stayed. And
Yeah.
so what we have to do is we have to get to what is the root of why you have allowed yourself to stay in a space where you know you deserve more, but you're not receiving that. And so I always call it like
Yeah.
the what is the root trauma of that? Because I always say that
Right.
just because a trauma is present doesn't mean it's detected. So the anger is a
Mhm.
symptom of the being cheated on, right? The
Right.
shame is a symptom of being cheated on.
Right.
The fear is a symptom. What we have to do is get down to the root of that. So
Right.
for me, the root of my hurt was rejection from my father, because my
Right.
father left me when I was a little girl in abandonment. So my belief was that if I loved my ex-husband harder, he would stay, because
You
I
would
did
say.
not want to experience rejection again. Um,
Right.
I had another client,
Mm.
once we actually started to uncover that, she
Yeah.
realized that she has mommy issues, right? And
Oh
that also
yeah.
her truth was that she thought that she was unattractive, because
Mhm.
prior to getting with her husband, she had never been in a relationship in her adult life. She was heavier set. She had just lost weight. So she had gotten really
Mhm.
confident. And right after she gained that confidence, she met this person. So she thought,
Mm.
okay, well, let me stay in this unhealthy relationship out of fear of being alone, right? Had another
Right.
client, she had a unhealthy relationship with
Oof.
her father. So the thing is, we
It's coming from
always have
somewhere.
to figure out what is the root of the issue. And so that's the work
Yes.
that we start to do.
Yeah, it's that undiagnosed trauma,
Mhm.
that is there. And I want to go back, to what you said about um, you didn't love yourself, right? I
Mhm.
mean, well, no, that you hated yourself, which
Mhm.
essentially is the same thing.
Yeah.
And I, I, when you say that and you are able to move forward in the conversation, unbothered about saying that, you recognize that you did the work. Obviously, you had to acknowledge that, and then you were able to move
Yeah.
forward with it. A lot of people are not brave enough to get to that place where
Yes.
they can actually admit that. They can
Uh-huh.
actually admit that. And honestly, I think that that's what you find out when you go for real on that self-love journey. You
Mhm.
realize, oh, what I have been doing has not actually been self-love.
At all.
At all. What I have been, if you get real with yourself, if you really keeping it real, like you say, you keep it real, we've actually been behaving like we hate ourselves, right? So
Mhm.
it's actually way more common than you or I think, or anyone who's watching even thinks, because that awareness is not even there, that what you're doing on a day-to-day basis in many cases, for so many, is not practicing self-love. and
Yeah.
and I hate that when things get brought to the internet, then they become like cliche or kind of like a
Mhm.
trend. And so once it becomes a trend, people stop taking it seriously. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, yeah, self-love, and they brush it off. But it's just like, no, 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 baby, bring it back. This
Yeah.
is serious, because that is going to determine how you move in every area of your life, and the
Yeah.
relationships that you create,
'Cause
the
it's more than self-love is more than, um, I'm going on a walk. I'm choosing me. What you like, you don't even know
I
what
mean, and
choosing
that's
me
actually better
means.
than what people are actually doing. They're like, oh yeah, we're going here. We're gonna go and eat brunch. Brunch is
Yeah.
not self-love, but the act of you taking yourself out and pampering yourself is a form of, self-love. So you have to make sure that you're able
Yep.
to understand the what, the
Mhm.
what part of it is the self-love. It's not,
Exactly.
it's not going to feed yourself whatever it is that you want, at some fancy, restaurant, and just do whatever you want, for the day, even if it's not necessarily like healthy for you. But
Yeah.
it's treating yourself. It is taking care of yourself, and that's the inside and out.
Mhm.
And one thing that I realized is the more that I understood what love is, and not this version of it that is like, I guess, is, I call it cookie cutter, like this fairy tale love.
Or this
But
toxic, selfish self-love.
yeah, all of that. Once I realized what it was, what it is, and I started to practice it, I was like, oh, okay. I feel different. I make different decisions. I don't feel offended about things that, and I don't really get offended about too much because I'm so direct and like, I speak my mind a lot. So, so I feel like you kind of got to have a little tougher skin, when you're that kind of person. But I realized that the things that I might have been more sensitive to, because I was hurting in other areas, as that healing, started to happen, like I was able to see things differently,
Mhm,
and I felt more full, just with me,
mhm,
and with making a decision and not being swayed, by society or what I've been told I'm supposed to be doing at this time and what
yeah,
this should look like. Maybe you should be married at this time, or, you should be doing XYZ. Those things were shifting, like as far as like importance, because sometimes we can get obsessed with certain ideas about marriage, having children, being with a certain type of partner. And we can make bad decisions because we're not healthy and whole, right? And so
yeah,
you do these different things so that you can secure this type of man, this type of job, this type of lifestyle, and at the end of the day find out that those are not the things that really make you, they don't fulfill you in any way.
mhm,
And now you're in a marriage, where you've been dishonest, disingenuous,
mhm,
with your partner, and your relationship may have been built on a lie, right?
mhm,
And
mhm,
so then there's those issues that you now have in your marriage or your relationship that you're hiding, right? But the thing
mhm,
is that your partner can feel those things, or those things may cause you to misbehave in your marriage, right? And so, yeah, it's just like those different types of things. We have to be mindful of where we're at,
mhm.
right now, and are we ready, right? And I think that even with when you're already in that marriage and you experience this trauma, I think it's pretty similar when it's time to make a decision if you're going to leave or stay.
Yeah,
Is acknowledge, where am I at? What has happened? How do I feel about it? You
mhm,
know, um, have I expressed that? What
yeah,
am I what am I gonna do? How can I
mhm,
get that support? Like,
mhm,
I think we have to check in with ourselves before we immediately try and, take action, right? Because then
yeah,
we can make a haste decision, as you were mentioning, like,
mhm,
don't say nothing. Don't say what you're gonna do right now. Because
mhm,
like you said, there's so many people like, oh, no, 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 I'm about to leave. And then what happens when he wants to work it out, or that one day
yep,
you're reminiscing about all these years of marriage, and you're missing them and things like that, and then you don't know, can I miss this person who cheated on me,
yeah,
um can I still love them? You're confused with a lot of different things. And
mhm.
so, yeah, just getting real with yourself, and having that awareness of where you're at, I think is super, important to your point, as well.
And that's the strongest form of self-love,
Mm,
is
yeah,
being truthful to yourself,
yeah,
being authentic to yourself. A lot of most of us are walking around with masks, so
mm,
we don't even know who we are. We're talking about self-love, but how can you give self-love when you don't even know who yourself is, right? Because you're masking it in this facade
yeah,
of who you want people to perceive you to be, and you
exactly.
haven't acknowledged your deepest hurts, your deepest fears, your deepest insecurities, your deepest
Yeah,
doubts, right? Like, you are not authentic with you. So
right.
how can you be authentic with others? How can you be authentic in a relationship? And how
Yeah,
can you be authentic in this expression of self-love,
right.
when you're lying to yourself? And that's the biggest thing that I always tell my clients when I talk
Yeah,
about um we allow people to treat us one step lower than we treat ourselves. Within that comes trust. And the
Mm,
first step to trust is rebuilding trust within yourself. Because
mm,
think about all of us, think about all the times that we have disappointed ourselves and not kept our word to ourselves. And what we don't
mhm.
realize is that
Yeah,
every time that we break promises to ourselves, it's going into the back of our subconscious, and our
that it's
subconscious
okay.
is
It's
slowly saying,
it's
hey, I
important for
can't
people.
trust you. Hey,
Right.
I don't believe you. Hey, you don't stand on your word. Hey,
Mhm.
you're a person that is not trustworthy. And so
Right.
then that's what happens when you get into toxic relationships and you see all these red flags. You start to question, because you've
Yeah.
trained yourself already how
Right.
not to trust you, because
Right.
you don't act on the stuff that you need to act on. And so that's
Mhm.
why you don't have the clarity
Yeah.
of, do I leave or do I stay? Because you don't trust yourself. So
Right.
the biggest part to that is the biggest part to self-love is learning how to be authentic and regaining that trust within yourself.
Mm. Yeah, that's so interesting, too, because I was thinking, yeah, you're going to constantly doubt yourself
Mhm.
because why wouldn't you? If you're sending this message that, okay, well, I'm not being accountable, and so when I'm dealing with this other person, I should, give them a little grace. No one's perfect, right? But
Mhm.
if we're constantly like bringing the bar down, constantly bringing the bar down, then you just really going to start accepting anything,
Yeah.
and 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 that's going to make it even harder to get to the point where you can love yourself. But I love what you said about that, about being authentic to yourself, that's a big piece to self-love. Before you even get to self-love, like, are you being authentic? Like, do you
Yeah.
know who is self?
Yeah.
Back to the therapist, your coach was telling you is just, who is Briaina,
Who is
right?
Briaina?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're like, well, that's what these people say about me, so
Exactly.
and that's a lot of us too. You're just like, well, you know, too, because sometimes someone may ask you that question, right? And then you answer, and maybe someone who's unhealthy is asking you that question, right? Because these relationships, sometimes we select people who are not the best, right? And someone asks you that question, and then you answer it, and you're like, oh, I think this is, this is that. And they're like, really, you? And then you're like, well, yeah, several people have told me that about me, and it's just very interesting, those little slight little things in life that can make you, doubt yourself and
Mhm.
become insecure. And those things can happen because you didn't have that sureness in the beginning, right? You didn't
Exactly.
have that confidence.
Mhm.
And like you mentioned about, the relationship with your dad, or the lack, there that's a lot of people. And even people who have their father in the home, sometimes they
Yeah.
may not, communicate enough. I've talked to many
Mhm.
people who they've said that they just wish that, especially with guys too. They was like, I wish that me and my dad would have talked more, growing up.
Yeah.
And so those missing those conversations and that interaction and that affirming that your parents are able to give you, father or mother, is so important, because it manifests in
Mhm.
our relationships later. It manifests in how we treat ourselves. It manifests in the way that what we allow people to do, or what we accept. And
Yeah.
so it's, oh God, it's so real. It's so real. But
Yeah.
about, we allow people to treat us one step lower than, like, like how as bad as like we are, to ourselves. They can be
Mhm.
a little less, than that,
Yep.
right? Or is it a little
Mhm.
less?
Mhm.
So Brene Brown says that too. But she says a version of that. She says she's a vulnerability, and vulnerability. She said there's the power of vulnerability, and
Mhm.
and she talks about shame and vulnerability, and she says that we um actually will allow people to treat us just as bad or like or a little lower than what we treat ourselves. But if they treat us worse than we treat ourselves, then that's when we want to like
Yeah.
pull the
That's
line.
when we're like, okay.
Yeah. And the funny thing, I mean, well, not funny, but the what's wrong with that is that what is that level like, how bad are we treating ourselves, right? So if someone is like, the minute that you're going to draw the line is when they treat you worse than you treat yourself, that might be like life threatening. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, it can be. But that's why, again, you have to get to that root issue,
Yeah.
because all it is it's just pent up trauma that
Yeah.
you are unaware of, trauma that you haven't acknowledged, trauma that you need to heal from.
Hmm.
And trauma can kill us, right? And,
Absolutely.
even, like my coach always talks about dis-ease, like the word of dis-ease. She's like,
Mm.
you're always going to have dis-ease in your
Yeah.
body. Like there's always going
Mhm.
to be this uneasiness in your body when
Right.
you're holding things in,
Yeah.
because it's unhealthy. And,
Absolutely.
unfortunately, so today, a lady inboxed me and she was like, I'm in a marriage and I'm unhappy in this marriage. She was
Mm.
like, he's a great man, but and basically she was just like, how I took that is that really they're just growing apart. And she was like, she has mentioned
Mhm.
going to counseling, and he has said that she needs to go to counseling because all of the issues are with her. He's not doing anything
Ah.
wrong. And
Mm.
so then she circled around and she was like, well, it's probably, I'm probably just being, picky and blah, 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 blah.
Second
And so I
guessing.
stopped her. I was like, okay, wait a minute. Because first of all, it's just too much through a messenger.
Right, right, right. But she's
So
second guessing
we got,
herself,
yeah,
because she's second guessing herself because she's not sure what, like, is this something I need to be, try to stay or no, or like, okay, we can sweep it under the rug, like a lot of times we do.
yeah,
But you said, yeah, this message is too much, for to go back, through instant message, and so y'all hopped on the
right.
line.
Yeah, and one of the things I'm gonna pull it up because I just sent her this, um, and she was like, "Oh wow, I never thought of it like that." But it says, "The needs you don't advocate for today become the resentments you have to carry tomorrow." And
Mm,
basically, what I was telling her was like,
mm,
"No, no, no, you don't ever discredit how you're feeling,
right.
because we all have the right to have what we desire out of a relationship."
Yeah.
So never feel like you have to settle in that relationship because that person is a good person. Like,
Right,
to
right.
me, again, that goes back to what we're talking about. When you
Mhm,
know your worth, when you know your value, when you
mhm,
are actually in tune with yourself authentically, that's what self-love, that's how self-love shows up. Self-love shows up in the form of like, hey, this is how I am feeling. This is what I
mhm,
desire. Now, how can we as a couple collectively come to a compromise so that
right.
we're both happy and benefiting in this relationship? But what self-destruction says is, okay, well, maybe I'm tripping because he is a good person. So I'm
Right.
just not gonna say
Avoid,
it.
avoid,
Yeah.
avoid.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna just hide and be quiet, and I am going to suppress how I truly feel. That lets me know that
Yeah.
there's something within you that
It's a
we need to work
self-worth
on,
issue.
because you don't feel like you're valued enough to have everything that you desire out of your marriage. And why
Right,
is that? Right?
right. Or worth the conversation,
Yeah, worth the
I don't
conversation.
feel worthy enough, in this relationship. I don't want to stir anything up
Yeah,
or rock the boat because if I say something, oh, what will he leave? Is that going to cause problems? Is that going to drive a wedge? And so then you compromise
yeah,
yourself, not make a compromise between the two of you, but you compromise yourself over and over again. And that, goes back to that worth, that worthiness. Am I worthy of love? Uh,
yeah.
so yeah. I did want to ask you a question before the next one that popped in my head. And I wanted to ask you, if you don't mind sharing, how did you get to the point of forgiveness? Like, what was the thing that let you know, like, okay, I forgive him?
Mm. Oh, so my story is so layered, right? So
Mm-hmm.
once I left my ex-husband for good,
Mm-hmm.
I met my father for the very first
Oh,
time. Yeah.
oh,
So once I decided to step away from my marriage for good, um, I met my father for the very first time.
hmm.
And once I saw my father, I realized that my father was the spitting image of my ex-husband.
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, from looks to appearance to how my father treats his women,
Oh,
it was
wow.
so crazy. And
Yeah.
so that was eye-opening to me to see
Huh.
that there's this, and people will probably not want to hear this too. I first had to take responsibility for the role that I played
Mm-hmm.
in that marriage,
Yeah.
right? Because now I'm not saying that that justifies cheating because nothing
Right.
justifies cheating. But
Right.
what I am saying is that we both had a role to
Mm-hmm.
play
In any
in
relationship.
that
Yeah.
relationship. And
Yeah.
so now when we talk about self-love, and you mentioned me like being able to speak up about this now and
Mm-hmm.
not
Yeah.
have any type of feelings
Yeah.
connected
No
to
resentment. Like, yeah.
yeah, it was all about the work that I did. And so
Mm-hmm.
once I realized that how we show up in relationships and how we treat other people
Mm-hmm.
are always connected to unhealed wounds, typically from
Mm-hmm.
childhood that we haven't healed from, it let me understand that, wow, my dad has childhood wounds that
Mm-hmm.
he hasn't healed from. So
Yeah.
I can't hold him
Yeah.
responsible for how he's treating me. He's just doing what he knows, right?
Right.
And
And
then the
he
same
may have
thing.
not done, he hadn't done the work. You
Yes,
always say we
yes,
have this privilege, not that our parents can't do this, right? But
yeah,
I feel like our generation is the generation, first generation for real, that
yeah,
has access to so many resources and the
yeah,
ability to really get what we need,
yeah.
to do
Mhm.
something new and to really break those generational curses.
Yeah, and so it's so true, right? Like, I never hold anything against my parents because I am who I am
Yeah.
because of them, right? Um, I'm thankful that my mom wanted more for me than she had in her childhood, so she did the best that
Mhm.
she could do, and then
Mhm.
I'll do the same thing for my future children too, right?
Right.
So it's like I never discredit, like, the teachings and the things that they've done for me because but like you said, it's thankful that now we have this access and this
Yeah.
awareness of healing. And
Right.
so, forgive my father because I'm realizing that he has trauma that he hasn't
Mhm.
healed from.
Right.
Same thing for my ex-husband. Once I started to do the inner work on myself, and here's the
Mhm.
thing, when you start to turn inwardly,
Mm.
everything outwardly is
Yeah.
it means absolutely nothing anymore. And that's the
Mhm.
thing. As
Yeah.
long as you are seeking validation externally, it's going to be hard for you to forgive others. But once
Mhm.
you learn how to seek validation internally, then all of those things that other people have done for to you, you realize, oh, I can forgive you for that because I've healed
Right.
my childhood wounds.
Right.
What I know right now is that yeah, you're 40 years old in age, but who's operating your life is that little boy that was
E
hurt. Is that
exactly.
little boy that has
Right.
that mother wound
Right.
that his mama wasn't present in his life, and now he doesn't know how to effectively communicate. So
Mhm.
instead, what he does to suppress his hurt and to have any sense of feeling is to go and sleep with multiple women. I
Yeah.
forgive you. I
Yeah.
forgive you because
Yeah.
shame on me to
Mm.
hold that against you when I
Right.
know now who I am, and
Right.
I am so far
Right.
beyond that. And
Right.
what forgiveness looks like is this. Forgiveness says, I forgive you for the past hurts that you've done in my life, and
Mhm.
I'm now not going to let those past hurts dictate how I move and how I see myself. Now,
Mhm.
trust is different because
Right.
what trust says is, what am I going to do with you now that I've forgiven you? And when what that
Mhm.
trust means is that now you have to rebuild that trust with me. I've
Mhm.
forgiven my father, but I don't trust my father, right?
Mhm. Right.
Because his track record isn't efficient enough for me to
Right.
trust him, but I
Right.
have forgiven him,
And
right?
neither's the
And the
problem,
same thing with my
right?
ex-husband.
It's
I
gonna
have
be
forgiven you, but I don't trust you. And
right.
that's the thing that a lot of women think about in marriages. They think that forgiveness automatically means trust. And we go back to this level of trust that we had
Mhm.
pre-infidelity. It doesn't work like that,
Right,
because
right.
now you're on a clean slate of trust. And there's
Mhm.
components to that that we have to do to get you back to that level of trust.
Yeah, boundaries and holding you accountable, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
as a partner, you have a responsibility, to each other,
Yeah.
and so with those responsibility, you have to hold them accountable, and so yeah, I totally get that with the trust thing,
Mm-hmm.
um, versus forgiveness. And a lot of times, yeah, we blur it together because a lot of times people don't have that healthy understanding of the difference.
Yeah. Because,
Especially if
and
you
that's the thing too. People are like, forgive and move on, forgive. And, and it's like, okay. And, hey, I'm big on this too. Because women will always come to me and say, well, how do you forgive? And I say, well, are you ready to forgive? And
right.
sometimes they're like, no, okay. So we have to stop
Like we don't even
letting
need to talk about
society
it
pressure us.
right now.
Like, if you still want to be pissed off, be pissed off. Like, this is
Yeah.
your healing.
Hmm.
And it is not linear. There is not no time frame that says, okay, you can be bad for this, X. No.
Right.
And that is what's hurting a lot of people. And that's what hinders healing, is that
Hmm.
so many people think, okay, well, I have to do everything right. No, you don't. If you're not ready to heal and
Right.
you're ready to be mad still, it's okay.
Right. Because how can you forgive and you haven't, or how can you heal if you haven't forgave, right? You're holding on to these things because you haven't even maybe even acknowledge it out loud, right? Because there's some people who experience the infidelity, are, holding in their childhood trauma and they haven't even acknowledged it. But it's so powerful to say things out loud.
Yep.
That's something that I've learned. A lot of the people and that I had higher hopes, for, and I put expectations on and wanted things to go a certain way. Um, I couldn't move forward because I wouldn't acknowledge what it is that I was feeling. In a self-worth thing, too, of thinking like, well, I don't want to bring that up because, other people are going through something worse and, oh, this is not that bad. And no one got time, to hear this. No one wants to hear you complaining about anything, And so you do all that, tell yourself all this extra stuff, that prevents you from just sitting still and sitting with your stuff, the things that are impacting you, and that are preventing you from thriving,
Yep.
and just acknowledging like, hey, I don't feel good, or these things hurt me, and I think I'm okay about it, but then it keeps coming up, ever so
Hmm.
many months or ever, like maybe 2 years later, and I'm still
Yeah.
kind of bothered by it. Something's got to give, right? You got to be able to address that and just say it, say it out
Yeah.
loud. And no matter what someone's going to think about it, if they don't care, they don't care. But this is for you, right? And then you
Hmm.
can start that process of healing and forgiving someone, right?
Yeah.
Because you can say, oh, okay, this person, they apologize, okay, that's fine, I forgive you, but then
Hmm.
you did it because you haven't even sat with how you feel,
Exactly.
you
And we're
know
talking about self-love and being authentic and
yeah.
wearing masks. All you're doing is now you're creating just another form of fakeness. Because the thing is, like some people realize, like they don't understand, well, why am I jumping from relationship to relationship and having the same experiences? Because each one of them is fake. Where you say, oh,
Mhm.
I'm over him, I'm over her, I'm moving on, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
I'm done with that. Are you really though? Because if you were, then you wouldn't continue to have these repetitive experiences, right?
You're looking for
So
something you can't even foster
you
in that,
can't even
just
foster, but it
because
talks about being authentic.
yeah.
And if you're not ready to forgive somebody, but you're lying to going back to self, right? But you're
Mhm.
lying to yourself saying that you've forgiven them, you
Right.
haven't. And so what happens is that disdain is now here in your heart. And so that, and I'm big on energies. And so
Mm.
all you're going to do is attract someone else that kind of connects with
With that
this
same,
disdain in your heart. And
yeah,
so you
energy.
have to be authentic with yourself. And
Mm.
until you realize how to be authentic with yourself, and like you said, man, this really hurts me. This right here is triggering me. I heard a song the other day and it made me get in my feelings
Run
because that was
everything back.
my love, and it is so totally okay to
Yeah.
say those things, because what happens is that when you do get into a relationship where you have actually released all of that and you're not wearing a mask, now you're able to give somebody a clean slate and you're not bringing in that baggage, right? And
Yeah.
then certain things that they do won't trigger you to have a trauma response from a hurt that somebody else has did.
Right. Oh gosh, that's so good. I love it. And you can tell, and it just seems, and it's so funny because on this side of things, it just looks so effortless, right? And I'm sure that's what people will, they think, they're like, I wouldn't even think that that happened because you just seem so healthy, about it. But that's because, you did that work and, you got real with yourself, like, hey, you know, I'm gonna feel this pain. I'm gonna get the help, I'm gonna deal with self and,
Mm-hmm.
um, and, and, and find out what this root is and address, deal with
Yeah.
that and go from there. And all these little things, led to the healing in this beautiful place that you are now and that birth, the work that you're doing. And
Yeah.
speaking, of that, um, like I mentioned earlier about, you get to add author, to your accomplishments, and I'm excited about this book that has just released. And
Yes,
so,
ma'am.
the healing the heart, after infidelity, and it's a workbook, right?
It's a devotional.
A devotional. Okay. So, um, what does this book mean to you?
Oh my gosh. Look, I'm gonna show y'all in the camera because
And what are your hopes
I
for
just
it?
love the work.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Um, so this book is so dear to my heart because it is what I needed when I was
Mm,
going through my experience, right?
mm,
Um, just like what we're talking about today, the compassion. The
mhm,
day one starts off with time doesn't dictate healing,
mm,
and so I
yeah,
love that because people need to know healing is on your own terms, on your own time, and it is not linear. And so, honestly, this book, what it means to me is that it's everything that I needed when I was
mm,
going through my battle with infidelity. And just a little bit more about my story. I went through severe depression. The therapist wanted to put me on psychotropic medications. My
mm,
hair was falling out, and I had gotten down to a size zero. Because I wasn't eating and I wasn't sleeping. So I say that to say I understand what people who are going through infidelity are dealing with. And so
mm,
this is definitely just that beginner's guide for you to start to heal from infidelity.
mm. I love that. And what are your hopes for the book, the devotional?
Um, I hope that through the devotional, people see that they are not alone in their experiences and
Mm,
that they can remove the shame
yeah.
of being cheated on, because that's one of the biggest burdens. Like, I've been at conferences. Like, one time I was at a conference and after the conference I went to the gas station and there was a woman at the gas station and she ended up being at the pump right next to me, and then she
Mm,
came up to me and said, I was too ashamed to talk to you after you got through talking. And when I'm at conferences, I see women all the time. Like, after I speak, they be side eyeing me, and I'm like, sis, just come on over. Ain't nobody
right.
gonna judge you for
Yeah.
talking to me. And
Right.
so I hope that through this book,
That's
people,
so interesting.
yeah, but that's that shame that
Yeah.
people are
I don't want them
carrying.
to think that I'm being cheated on if I go talk to
Yeah.
her, and it's just
Yeah, or I
like,
don't even want them to know that this has
yeah,
happened to me because I am still hiding behind this mask that I got it all together. Nobody would ever
yeah.
cheat on me. I'm this
Mm.
successful, beautiful, well put together
That don't make
woman.
you exempt.
But God forbid that I let this truth be exposed. And
Yeah.
so that is what I hope from this book, is that people see that they are not alone
Mm,
and that they can remove the shame of their experiences with infidelity.
yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yes, I believe that that is exactly what it will do, and so much more, and hopefully just transform what is going on inside from that depressed state, like as you mentioned, that depressed state, and in that mindset of, you know, I'll never find another love, again, like who wants me now,
Yeah.
after this, and the shame and all those things that can come, with it, that they can just, find that healing that they need. And
Mhm.
I believe that that's what's going to happen, with the
Yeah.
book, and I'm just excited to see what happens. I'm
Me
always excited.
too.
Anything you post, I'm like, oh, she's doing God's work, okay? She's doing it. So
Yes.
I hope those same things for, my book. And it's so interesting that what you're saying. I'm still working on that, and just going through the process with it. But I'm healing through writing it, and
Yeah.
I am learning so much, and then that compassion, like you
Mhm.
said, as you do that work and you take the accountability, you will find yourself having so much compassion, for people. I thought I was compassionate before, but
Yeah.
I really, I was, but not. It is shifting. It is becoming what it's supposed to.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see that God's love, the love, the real love, that that we speak about but don't know, for real what it is. But I'm learning how to love that way, and be more
Yeah.
compassionate, in that way, and just growing. So I'm just excited. I'm so excited. So I want you to tell the people how they can get in contact with you, and how they can follow you on social media, and anything that you have coming up.
Yes.
Now that I've read
Okay.
the devotional book
Um
devotional.
so you can follow me on IG and TikTok at underscore life underscore after underscore infidelity underscore. So if you just type in life after infidelity, it'll show up on both Instagram and TikTok. If you would want to know how to reach out to me and get a coaching consultation, you can always email me at affairrecoverycoach@gmail.com, or you can check out my website at lifeafterinfidelity.net and schedule a coaching consultation there as well. The link to my calendar is on the website at lifeafterinfidelity.net. And that is also where you can purchase the book. So, yeah, just reach out.
Yay, so excited. Well, it was such a, pleasure just having you on. I get to have you as a friend, but I'm just, happy to start off the season, with this conversation, because it needs to be had. Last season was
Yeah.
all about love and marriage, and just interviewing married couples, and obviously that's a lot of people want, to be there at that place, but it does take a lot of work, and
Mhm.
sometimes you get to that place, and things happen, and you need that coach, that support to help and
Mhm.
guide you through it. So
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you are here to do this work, that is needed. I hope to see more people starting to do what you do. I know marriage counselors may, but I don't know if it's necessarily from the same perspective,
Yeah.
and the angle that you're coming from. And I
Mhm.
think that there needs to be more of that, because there are a lot of people who are struggling of what to do next, and should I go or should I stay? And
Mhm.
I'm happy that it's you who is doing the work, because the type of heart that you have,
Thank you.
it's so pure. So thank you so much for doing what you do. And to the audience, appreciate you guys rocking with us and coming back for this season. And we have a lot of, great topics about, areas of transformation. So we hope to see you in the comments. And if you guys have any suggestions or anything you want to see, make sure you just DM me on Instagram at Talks with V, and check out our up and coming shows on the V Bailey Network. And make sure that you subscribe and share, and we'll see you next time. Good night.
Bye.